So Gary, I thought we'd get together today and talk a little bit more about this upcoming film project, the Alien Intrusion movie. And I think a lot of people are curious, why did you embark on a project about the UFO phenomenon?
Well, I suppose, Scott, I've got to go back to why I wrote a book on the subject in 2005. I only became a Christian in my adult life, so I could recall the influence that science fiction had on me as a young man, you know, with its portrayal of alien worlds, futuristic technology. And a lot of people don't know or realize that science fiction has a lot of messianic themes in it. In fact, ufology has been recognized as a substitute religion by sociologists and many other professionals. So when I came to Creation Ministries International full-time many years ago, I proposed the idea to leadership that these themes actually had a very strong underlying evolutionary connection. Simply put, if life evolved on the Earth, it must have evolved countless times over if the Big Bang occurred 14 billion years ago, as evolutionists believe. And today, many scientists even believe that highly evolved and technologically advanced aliens created life on Earth. It's become mainstream science. You know, science fiction is the #1 most popular entertainment genre of them all. And I believe, and correctly as it turned out with my book, that using these sci-fi themes would be a great way of introducing people to creation concepts.
You know, it's interesting how big of a subject the UFO phenomenon is in our culture. I mean, all you need to do is bring up aliens and you've started quite a conversation. In fact, I remember in an article that you wrote on creation.com, you mentioned that 80% believe that the government is hiding the existence of extraterrestrial life forms. 64% believe that aliens have contacted humans, and half believe that aliens have abducted humans.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to believe for people who are skeptical about this subject, but in fact those figures would also include a lot of Christians. From my experience in speaking in churches on the subject, literally hundreds of times, I think those stats are reasonably accurate. And a lot of Christians come up to me because they've seen things in the sky that they can't explain. And because of our culture, it causes people to believe those unidentified flying objects, may contain extraterrestrials. They're flying saucers from another planet. So yes, a conversation about a good sci-fi movie can lead to a very easy way of starting a conversation where I think you can demolish what's known as the extraterrestrial hypothesis. That has an evolutionary basis. The extraterrestrial hypothesis is the idea that aliens are visiting us from a distant star system far, far away, in their hyperdrive spaceships. And there are pretty easy, simple arguments we can use to show, for example, that interstellar travel is not possible within the lifetime of living beings or living organisms, even if we had some advanced future technology. In short, what's depicted in these movies, Scott, is not scientifically possible. It's fun, but it's really not realistic. I'll give you some examples. Murphy, who's making the movie with me, we've been out filming and we've met lots of curious onlookers who come up to us and they see the cameras and say, yeah, what are you doing? And we tell them, it kind of goes like this. I reply, well, we're making a movie about a Christian or a biblical explanation of the UFO phenomenon. And you can see the surprise on their face. And I say, well, unidentified objects are seen on radar and that people claim they've been abducted by aliens. And it's usually met with, wow, I'd love to see that. So how often is it when we talk about Christianity to people, they have that reaction? It's kind of people take a step back. But you see what I'm saying here? I mentioned this subject, they want to know more.
And speaking of filming, what are the types of people that you've been interviewing for this film?
We've interviewed rocket scientists, researchers in the UFO field, both Christian and non-Christian, pastors, teachers. I'll give you one example, Nick Redfern. He's written over 40 books, the majority of them about the UFO phenomenon. And he had some really, really interesting things to say that parallels what we believe as Christians, but he comes from a non-Christian perspective. He's kind of the Discovery Channel, the History Channel's kind of lead guy when it comes to the UFO phenomenon. But I suppose the thing that impacted me the most, and also Murphy when we were out there, was interviewing what we call experiencers. Meeting them firsthand, listening to their stories was really something else.
It was traumatizing, is probably the best way I can put it. I felt completely powerless to do anything about it. I didn't understand what was going on.
I tried to talk. I tried to yell. I was very frightened. I was scared to death because I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't move.
You can't do anything. They're in total control. I don't recall giving them my control, but I didn't have any.
Almost everything I was reading or watching was telling me aliens were what was happening.
I'd like folks to understand, even if you don't believe that they really met aliens, and of course I don't either, but these people had been traumatized, abused, and some of them were rejected by their family and friends as a result of their experiences. They felt alone. And the sad thing was, many of them actually even went to the church for help, but they didn't get any because the church didn't understand how to deal with the subject. It's not meant to be a criticism. It's just something that ordinary pastors and leaders and Christians in general have no experience of, and it was just too freaky for them. During one particular interview, and people can see snippets of this in our trailers, both Murphy and I literally broke down in tears. It's not an exaggeration. As we interviewed, Joyce was her name, and she told us her story and how it split her family apart. It was so hard to listen to as she recounted it, and both Murphy and I agreed we will never forget that day. But what it did do was it reinforced to us that we were onto something special, and we knew these stories had to be told. Here's something else I'd like to say. We said earlier that people have seen things in the sky. Claim 20 million Americans have seen a UFO. You know, you and I and scientists, we can't kind of grab that UFO and bring it in and do scientific tests on it. Interviewing experiences, in fact, is the only way to solve the problem, to give an answer to what is really happening out there. So this movie is really like nothing else in the realm of what CMI or even the creation movement has ever done before. And it's my hope and prayer and my belief that this subject matter, this single resource, has the potential to reach more people than anything we've ever done before.
You know, it's interesting because we all know what we do on a day-to-day basis at Creation Ministries International, and projects like this are above those responsibilities, and not just financially, but, you know, for example, you are doing a full ministry schedule, yet you're fitting this filming in above what you normally do.
Very true. My dear wife is probably wondering if I really had been abducted by aliens because I've been away so much. But seriously though, it's a subject that's close to my heart. Meeting these people, their stories need to be told. But the most impactful thing this movie is going to have is the revelation of truth that understanding this subject matter has the power to thwart the enemy. Scott, we're in a spiritual battle. Even dealing with creation versus evolution is ultimately a spiritual issue because it's about whether there's a creator or not. This movie is going to have exactly the same conclusion. So in short, I'd kind of like to say to our supporters and friends out there, you know, they're the ones that help us make this the best resource absolutely possible. So we do need support to get it finished. But most of all, if anything from this interview, I'd like people to pray. We are delving into the deep area of spiritual warfare, and the resistance has been noticeable to all of us in the ministry. I know you would confirm that as well.